I want chocolate cake now. Go buy it for me. Lying in bed, feeling utterly miserable, my mother-in-law, Grace, demanded that I fetch her a cake immediately. Her constant clamor was driving me to my breaking point. Could you just be quiet for once? I'm only here for a month more. Just get your own damn cake. You fool. My name is Olivia, and I'm 28 years old. I met my husband, David, through a mutual friend, and after dating for 3 years, we tied the knot. We don't have children yet, but we're enjoying our time together. David's family runs a small factory with about 30 employees, founded by my late father-in-law. The business has thrived through the hard work of its staff. David's sister, Sophia, now manages the company as CEO. She's single and has a sharp business acumen, which has led to noticeable improvements in the company's performance. David often praises her communication skills, saying she's as personable as Mom. Sophia was welcoming from the start. I'm Sophia, your sister-in-law. I'm thrilled to have such a wonderful sister, she said with a warm smile, which made me, someone who only has brothers, feel like I had gained a sister. However, not everything is as rosy as it seems. The issue lies with my mother-in-law. Our company's coffee breaks at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. drive me nuts. Every time I hear, "Sorry, Olivia, I'm busy. Could you get Mom's coffee?" my mood plummets. The family home is next to the factory, and after my father-in-law passed away, Grace chose to retire and stay at home. She seemed to relish these coffee breaks, saying, "I've been waiting for you." One day, I wanted to speak with Sophia, but she shot me a look of obvious disapproval. As she was about to leave with a forced smile, she said, "Sit down. I have something to say to you." Then she vented her frustrations until the break ended. "So, 3 years of marriage and still no kids," she began. What could I say? Kids aren't something you can just plan on a whim. Silence only seemed to make her more irritable. Why the long face? Why did David choose you? Given your family history, who knows how long you'll last? The sooner, the better, she said with a sigh. Her comments, especially about my parents, hit hard. When David and I got engaged and met his family, Grace reacted with shock when I mentioned my lack of parents. My mother passed away from cancer when I was 10, and my father died of a heart attack when I was 20. My memories of my mother are faint, but my father raised my brother and me on his own. I regret not having the chance to repay him for all he did. While most people react with pity, Grace's response was, "So, you might not live long either." Her insensitivity left me speechless. How rude and thoughtless, I thought. Despite her behavior, David insisted that Grace's complaints were important to her. Should I reconsider this marriage? I wondered. Just then, Sophia, who had been silent, slammed her hand on the table. Her voice was calm but firm. "What are you talking about?" The room fell silent. Grace then turned to Sophia for support. "Right, Sophia, you agree with me, don't you?" she asked. Sophia responded coldly. "What? I told Mom that David chose Olivia for himself, and she's wonderful. Why can't you support that?" Her sharp words seemed to shock Grace, who had always admired her daughter. After that, Grace's snide comments became rare, except when we were alone. Even during the twice daily coffee breaks, Grace looked displeased when I brought her coffee instead of Sophia. David and I had rented a nearby apartment, so I only had to endure Grace's complaints. During those brief coffee breaks, I was relieved not to live with her full-time, but my peace was abruptly disrupted by a record-breaking hurricane that brought a wave of misfortune. "Olivia, something terrible has happened." David's panic-stricken voice echoed through the house. I rushed to find our living room in chaos. With the ceiling leaking from the hurricane, the landlord informed us that the same issue was affecting other units. It was clear that staying there was untenable, so we needed temporary housing. Sophia, with her characteristic cheerfulness, suggested, "Why worry? Just stay with us. Your commute will be 30 seconds. Her innocent tone left us no choice but to move in with David's family for a while. "Welcome home, David. I know the move must have been tough, but Mom is thrilled that we're all together again." My mother-in-law greeted us with a bright smile. David barely acknowledged her, acting more like a sullen teenager than a grown man. When she finally noticed me, she said, "Oh, Olivia, you're here too. I didn't notice you because you're so quiet." David's irritation was evident, and I could only force a smile, knowing we'd be staying here for a while. Once we settled in, I encountered something unusual. On our first night in the house, I decided to cook dinner as a thank you. I prepared a simple meal of bread, soup, and steak. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law praised the meal, which made me feel relieved. But then, something odd happened. My mother-in-law suddenly got up, humming, and retrieved a container from the fridge. She opened it and heaped a generous amount of its contents onto her steak. Mom, you're still eating that stuff. David looked disgusted, and Sophia rolled her eyes, saying, I've given up trying to stop her. She won't listen. She laughed as if it were a long-standing joke. It took me a moment to realize the mystery topping on the steak was jam. While combining sweet and savory isn't unheard of, slathering jam on a seasoned steak struck me as bizarre. When you eat something salty, you crave something sweet, right? My mother-in-law said, looking quite pleased with herself. I felt a pang of discomfort just watching her. I'm not a fan of sweet sauces on meat. Come on, Olivia, try it. It's delicious, she urged me. I didn't want to taste it, but I forced a smile. Apparently, that wasn't the reaction she expected. I'm recommending it for a reason. Maybe you'll live longer if you follow my example. With that parting comment, she retreated to her room, leaving me dumbfounded. David and Sophia apologized, explaining, sorry about Mom. She's always like this. It turns out my mother-in-law has a serious sweet tooth and doesn't feel her day is complete without cake. Strangely, her annual health checkups always come back normal. I remember enjoying cake too, but not daily. It would get monotonous. And what about blood sugar levels? Considering both my parents had short lifespans, her jam-covered steak was quite a shock. Wait, does Sophia buy the cake every day? I asked, taken aback. Sophia admitted with a chuckle. Yeah, she makes me buy it because she's embarrassed to do it herself. I've become friends with all the local cake shops because of it. David, clearly frustrated, said, Sophia, this isn't funny. Mom's getting older. She needs to be more mindful of her health. I felt guilty for leaving it to Sophia to manage Mom's whims. David's frustration was palpable. Well, it looks like you two will need to pitch in more from now on, Sophia said with forced cheerfulness. I braced myself for more interactions with my mother-in-law. Although living with David's family made my commute shorter, I took on household chores before and after work. I tried to engage Grace in conversation, but she often gave me the cold shoulder or ignored me outright. Despite this, she never missed a chance to complain about her grandchildren during our coffee breaks. Since moving in, my stress levels have soared, and my mood has plummeted. David noticed and suggested several times that we go to the doctor together. Let's move out and stay at a hotel temporarily, he proposed, but I declined, feeling it would be a waste of money and the nearest hotel was still a bit far. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I had to leave for a business trip that would last an entire week. I was taken aback by the news from my husband. The worst part was that Sophia, my sister-in-law, would be coming along, which meant I'd be alone with my mother-in-law. David did offer to take me with him, but I figured it was just a week. I hoped I could manage, especially since I was still feeling unwell on the day they left. Sophia sent me a mother-in-law survival guide on my phone. If anything goes wrong, just feed her cake, and you'll be fine. I couldn't help but laugh. The guide listed local cake shops and my mother-in-law's favorite cakes from each. For someone bracing for a tough week, this information was a lifesaver. Our home renovations were scheduled to be completed in a week, and I thought I could handle it. However, that optimism crumbled on the first night when I returned from work. My mother-in-law was blocking the entrance. Do you know why I'm upset? She demanded. No, I don't. I'm not a mind reader, I replied. Losing patience, she snapped. You missed both the 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. coffee breaks today. Her words caught me off guard. With David and Sophia away and end-of-month tasks piling up, I had completely forgotten about the coffee breaks. I thought she might understand, considering she used to work, but instead she yelled, You're starting this nonsense, you wicked woman. I felt bewildered. Why was I being yelled at like this? Did I really deserve to be called wicked? Suppressing my frustration, I told myself it was only a few more days. I bought a cake during my lunch break, but it was left in the office fridge. Sorry, I didn't bring it with me, I said. Her face instantly shifted from anger to a smile. Let's forget about today. Just don't forget tomorrow. Okay, she said cheerfully and retreated to her room. From that moment on, I decided to call her the cake demon. I never missed a coffee break after that, knowing how troublesome it would be to upset her. On the day David and Sophia were set to return, I was so stressed that I experienced nausea, headaches, and a loss of appetite. I took the day off and went to the hospital. It's quite serious. Can your family come immediately? The doctor said. I broke down in tears as I was told I had cancer and might have only a month to live, maybe even just weeks. Returning home, tear-streaked and shaky, I lay down on the bed. The door burst open. What are you doing skipping work? Sophia and David are working hard, and you're just slacking off, Her yelling only intensified my headache. I lacked the energy to respond and simply said, "I'm not feeling well." Closing my eyes, mother-in-law didn't like this and continued to complain, saying things like, "That's why you can't have kids, and who knows if you'll live long." I stayed silent, pretending to be asleep. Then, out of nowhere, she asked about the day's coffee break. Is she really this clueless? I thought, opening my eyes to see her hovering over me. Grace, I'm sorry, but I'm not feeling well enough to go shopping today. Could you please? I asked. She cut me off. I don't care. I want chocolate cake now. Go buy it. You're probably faking it. She screamed louder than ever. My frustration reached its peak. Shut up. Listen to me. I have 1 month to live. Go buy your own damn cake. You idiot. Her words seemed to stun her, and she stared at me in shock. Just then, David and Sophia appeared, their faces showing concern. What's going on? Oh, Olivia, what do you mean by woman? David asked, pale-faced. Ignoring the shocked mother-in-law, David came to my side, and I felt a wave of relief, which made me burst into tears. I can't take it anymore. The doctor says I might have cancer, and I'm feeling terrible, but you keep nagging me for cake. Enough is enough. Stop bothering me about kids too. Just leave me alone. I poured out my frustration, sobbing. David and Sophia looked at Grace with icy glares. Sending a sick person to buy cake. Are you out of your mind? Sophia, usually cheerful, had a fierce look I had never seen before. David, raising his voice, added, "You've been making snide remarks about the kids. I didn't say anything because it's private, but the reason we can't have kids is me." About a year after we married, we saw a doctor due to difficulties conceiving. The test showed that I was fine, but David's numbers were low. He was deeply upset and kept apologizing to me. I didn't want to add to his distress, so I avoided discussing children. Although I wanted kids, I believe life with just David was enough. I never considered leaving him because of this issue, and kept it from my mother-in-law to avoid further stress for David. Mother-in-law's expression went blank as she absorbed my husband's words. Just then, my phone rang. The caller ID showed it was the hospital. Hello, yes, right now. My husband just got home. Okay, understood. The urgency in the doctor's voice made my anxiety spike, and I began to cry. David, trying to comfort me, said, "It's okay. Oh, Olivia, can you stand? I'm here with you." He looked on the verge of tears himself as we hurried to the hospital. As we left, I saw Sophia giving mother-in-law a stern talking to. At the hospital, we were quickly led into a room where both the doctor and the hospital director waited us, looking deeply apologetic. It turned out to be a case of mistaken identity. My medical records had been confused with those of another patient who shared my name and birth date. The doctor, clearly exhausted, explained the mix-up. The incident made local news, and the hospital pledged to overhaul its procedures. We're not specialists here, but Olivia's symptoms might be. We were referred to another hospital for a more accurate diagnosis. Returning to my in-laws' house, I found mother-in-law visibly chastised by Sophia, shrinking in her seat. Sophia later confided that she was worried about her son losing his wife, and how heartbroken he would be. Though it seemed like love gone awry, it was clear that Sophia's concern was genuine. Even mother-in-law broke down, asking through her tears, "Did I really do something that bad?" I was overwhelmed with joy when I revealed, "I'm pregnant." Tears of happiness welled up in my eyes, and David shared in that emotion. We promptly went to the maternity hospital where we were told, "It's still early, but yes, you're pregnant. We can confirm the heartbeat." Hearing this, we both cried tears of joy. Even Sophia, usually so composed, couldn't hold back her tears of relief, saying, "I'm so glad, truly glad." Soon after, Sophia got engaged to her long-term boyfriend and moved to another state with him after quitting her job, which wasn't unexpected. David, who was taking over as CEO, was swamped with client visits. The business trip he had been on was related to this transition, and he managed to return a day early. Mother-in-law was taken aback by the news. "What? Getting married, quitting her job, and moving away?" she exclaimed. "Yes, I mentioned it earlier, remember?" Sophia responded. "Well, it's done now," mother-in-law conceded. As we returned home, we were delighted to find our leaky roof repaired and our room beautifully renovated. The tension with mother-in-law lingered, and David, more so than I, declared he never wanted to see her again. Despite this, she began appearing at our coffee breaks, not with cakes, but with small snacks like biscuits. It seemed she was trying to be more health conscious now that she knew about the baby. Seeing that employees who had worked with my father-in-law interact warmly with mother-in-law made me realize she wasn't inherently unkind. Our conversations increased, and our complaints diminished. When our daughter, Emma, was born, mother-in-law underwent a remarkable transformation. She started buying diapers, preparing side dishes, and leaving them with a note saying, "Feel free to eat, you're always working so hard." She would send a message and leave the food in a cooler without ringing the doorbell, which I appreciated deeply. I felt I could genuinely get along with this new version of mother-in-law. What truly convinced me of her sincerity was when Emma was born. Mother-in-law took my hand and said, "Thank you, oh, Olivia, really, thank you." Her tears were heartfelt, and I knew she meant it. Sophia seems to be thriving as well and recently announced her own pregnancy. It looks like we'll soon gather at the in-laws' house for a joyous family meal.